A bit of muting on the line because we had some background noise. So we should be good to go now. Let's start from the beginning. Quick overview of that. Our topic today is leaving your legacy data problems behind with Snowflake's modern cloud data platform. Eric from Precisio will be presenting. Give you a quick background of DataTerrain. My name is Leah. DataTerrain is dedicated to business intelligence for over a decade, providing automated reports conversion, custom development, pre-built reports, and short-term fixed cost support. Today we're going to be reviewing Snowflake, and Eric will be giving that presentation. We will open it up to questions at the end, so please stick around for that. Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Leah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Pouliot from Precisio. We partner with DataTerrain on various implementations and support for business intelligence. Today, I'd like to speak with you today about the Snowflake Cloud Data Platform. So we're going to spend a few minutes on a high-level overview, cover a lot of the key benefits, discuss a bit about the basic pricing. We won't get into the details of the pricing, but want to introduce to you the concepts of how it works from a pricing perspective, and then what you can do to kind of get started with the platform yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. So Snowflake is basically a cloud data platform. It supports a variety of high-level use cases, from data engineering, the ability to transform data, enrich data, data lakes and data warehouses. You can host both your data lake and data warehouse on Snowflake, even use it for hybrid data lake, data warehouse queries, and that sort of thing. And then from a consumer perspective, leverage it for data science workloads, various types of data applications, like predictive analytics applications, search applications, that sort of thing. Anything that has to do with, working with data in a variety of different ways. And then, of course, the data exchange. If you want to exchange data with other companies, or you want to leverage data from other companies where they've published data on the Snowflake Data Exchange, you're able to do that. And there's even a data monetization aspect of it. If you want to sell or buy data, and just be able to leverage the platform itself for that kind of an exchange. It's supported by all three major public clouds that everybody knows and loves, the Google Cloud Platform, AWS, and Microsoft Azure. So if you set up a data warehouse, for example, on Snowflake, you'll be prompted to select which cloud and which region of the cloud that you want to host your Snowflake on. It's not an OLTP, online transactional processing. So if you have an application where you're doing a lot of data inserts, high frequency, that sort of thing, you're not really going to replace your traditional, say, SQL Server or Oracle database with Snowflake from the standpoint of your transactional processing workloads, right? So data applications, sure, absolutely. You have like analytic data applications, predictive analytics applications, data science workflows, business intelligence applications, all of those things perfect for Snowflake, but your traditional sort of OLTP, not so much a good fit. High-level architecture of Snowflake, same on all three public clouds. At the core of it, you have your centralized storage, where you're actually hosting the data that, or rather Snowflake is hosting the data that you will be leveraging. And then separate, but very much related to it, is the multi-cluster compute. So the compute is everything that has to do with interacting with that data. All of the processing that you're doing on that data may be, different kinds of writing of the data, or different kinds of querying of the data for business intelligence, data science, and so on and so forth. That's actually handled by the compute layer. And when we get into pricing a little bit later on, you'll see that there's a very clear distinction in terms of how you'll pay for the centralized storage versus how you'll pay for the compute. They're decoupled in a very interesting fashion. And then, of course, you have all the various cloud services on top of that, your security and governance, the management of your transactions, optimizing the query optimizer and all of the metadata required to optimize those queries. how you're actually sharing the various artifacts that you have on the Snowflake platform, you know, all of the permissioning and all of that good stuff. Everything is handled through the cloud services layer. Snowflake delivers a couple of really key benefits here. Easy management, very easy to manage because it's quite intuitive, simple to manage, but it's also serverless from the standpoint of you don't have to actually manage the infrastructure aspect of things. You know, very much all of that is abstracted to the customer that's using Snowflake. You know, you can select the different kinds of things as far as the size of your data warehouses, if you want to cluster to those data warehouses, but you don't have to actually set up the infrastructure or manage the infrastructure for that. It's really as simple as you know, selecting from a drop-down list the kind of compute that you're interested in having for certain types of workloads. All data in one system. Snowflake scales extremely well, so if you want to bring all of your consumable data into one system for the purposes of, as I've mentioned before, you know, if you want to do data engineering, you want a data lake, a data warehouse, or several data warehouses with underlying several data marts, you can do all of that within Snowflake. Fast elasticity, meaning that if you have a point in time where you see that the usage is going up significantly for a particular kind of workload, say it's a quarter's end, you know, time where certain people need larger reports or year-end reporting or that kind of thing. Well, the demands for resources can grow commensurate with that, and then you can leverage Snowflake's fast elasticity to very quickly respond to that demand so that users will be able to leverage a linear type of performance and not encounter, you know, performance or stability issues as they raise their usage patterns. And then, of course, unlimited concurrency. You know, it really scales from how many users that you want and how many departments or what have you. Snowflake is very well built so that you can, you know, again, not have to leverage or not have to manage the infrastructure that would be required to scale out concurrency. You can actually set it up as a configuration and then enable the additional users to concurrently use the system. One of the very key benefits of this type of high-powered concurrency is that you don't really have to worry about, let's say, concurrent ETLs with querying and data science. So let's say that, you know, between midnight and 4 a.m. you have you know, an ETL that requires a lot of power. It's going to run for 4 hours. Well, it's not even a problem now for other users during that time frame to actually, you know, read reports or you know, run queries and that sort of thing. Whereas, you know, typically you might have to manage around that sort of thing. And that becomes even more important if you have, let's say, hourly data loads in the middle of the day or even at peak hours. You don't want your end users to suffer from that. The need to consistently ingest the data into the system should not impact the experience that the end user is actually consuming the data. So in Snowflake world, this is the case in terms of not being a concern and not having an impact because of the way that you could scale compute. So as I mentioned before, this is an example of that where, you know, let's say you have 4 different virtual warehouses in Snowflake. One is for ETL and processing. The other one is optimized for SQL analysts, and then you have another one for data science, and then maybe some BI and analytics tools such as SciSense or Power BI or Tableau, for example, leveraging that. And each of these different workloads will run concurrently without impacting each other, and also be sized appropriately. So you might say that the ETL and processing warehouse needs to have a lot of computing power, right? Whereas the SQL analysts, they don't need as much computing power. Well, you can set your ETL and processing maybe to a medium-sized warehouse, whereas your SQL analyst could be an X small or a small warehouse. And that's actually going to directly translate into the kind of performance that you get from those warehouses and also what you pay for those warehouses. So here's an example of fast elasticity. You know, you definitely have various needs in terms of, you know, the time of the day or the time of the month, or you'll have certain periods where you'll have peaks. Those could be month ends, quarter ends, year ends, and in your business, it could be different. There would be certain times where you would actually have needs for a lot more capacity from a server computing power perspective, but that does not reflect your average or median requirement for capacity. So with something like Snowflake, you don't need to overbuy in order to account for that kind of required capacity in your peak periods. You can simply set it up so that you can leverage the amount of compute you need for the period that's needed. And then if you have unanticipated usage that requires more capacity, you'll see that through alerting and reporting of how people are using your system, and then you can adjust the capacity accordingly through configuration. Minimal management, so that's a really key thing, and this goes to the point of opportunity cost, where you don't need to spend as much manually working on things about infrastructure, consistent tuning. You have to worry about your whole indexing strategy. If you're going to run out of storage, and what to do if you're going to run out of storage. Do you scale up, or how can you scale out? You don't need to do things like vacuuming. You don't need to worry about manual backups or anything like that. So, all of these things enable you to free time from a business perspective to focus really on leveraging the data and not necessarily having to kind of always worry about the infrastructure and spending countless hours dealing with that. Security, critical thing. Snowflake is very, very secure, highly secure. Obviously they need to be based on the business that they're in, hosted in the cloud and all of that good stuff. They support a list of high-powered features from a security perspective. Most of them are available through the standard Snowflake. Some of them require more of the enterprise edition or business critical edition. But you can see here a list of some of the key security features that they have. And they're also certified on some of the really key certifications that are required, PCI DSS, HIPAA, SOC 2, those types of certifications. Snowflake has them pretty much covered. So as I mentioned earlier, also you have the data marketplace. One of the really cool things about the data marketplace is the ability to share data with others within the company and also externally outside of the company via secure views. And then there's also a monetization aspect of it. So if you had a data set that you wanted to sell that had some value in the marketplace, the Snowflake marketplace will enable that for you to be able to do that. Via secure views, obviously, as you're sharing the data, if you have multiple tenants that are accessing the data, you could leverage secure views to make sure that people only have access to the right data. And one of the really cool things about this being in the cloud is that it's globally available across the 3 clouds, number one, but also you don't have to move the data around. It's simply exposed to whoever the customer of the data is, or if you're a customer of somebody else's data, you'll basically have access to a view of their data virtually, not physically, right? So you don't have to worry about ETLing the data, or if you actually own the data, you don't have to worry about the sprawl of the data, like who has the data and so on and so forth. You know that people are accessing your data virtually. So no need for the ETL stuff. Very convenient way to exchange data indeed. They have a tremendous ecosystem, always evolving as well, and multiple types of solutions in the ecosystem and vendors from a technology perspective. So, as I mentioned, of course, the 3 clouds in terms of the hosting, they connect technologically, natively to a significant list. And obviously, this is just a small snapshot. If you go to the Snowflake website and see their partner ecosystem, you'll see it's significantly bigger than this. There's tons and tons of various partners, which is fantastic because it allows you to really leverage the ecosystem to create a holistic solution for data that isn't just restricted to Snowflake. I mean, Snowflake does a ton of stuff, but they don't do everything, right? They don't do ETL, they don't do the BI stuff. data science. So you have all of these different solutions technologically that link up with Snowflake natively, and then you have an extremely rich ecosystem of solutions and services vendors that can come in and help you with various implementation tasks, related to Snowflake directly or holistically if it's Snowflake plus other solutions. So, for example, us at Precisio, we specialize with Sisense and the combination of Sisense and Snowflake, right? So here's a quick idea of what this looks like. In the middle, you have the Snowflake system. You can ingest all of your various data sources into it via either ETL or ELT. And then you can also leverage their hybridized or data lake capabilities as well. So not everything needs to be in the EDW, right? So sometimes you'll have a bunch of data that you want to put in the data lake in various ways and then access it when needed. And then for more structured data and so on and so forth, you'll want to put it in the EDW. Well, Snowflake enables all of that and allows you even to query across both your EDW and data lake. And then, of course, you can retransform your data, create materialized views, run ETL within Snowflake to create a bunch of either physical or logical data marts so that various consumers of the data can leverage, right? Then you can also do things like pull data out of Snowflake, run data prep workloads for high-level machine learning and data science, and then push them back into Snowflake so that the predictions can be easily queryable via end business consumers. So here's some examples of how this could look like. Here, these little icons, the XS, S, L, L, M. These are virtual data warehouses tied to specific types of workloads. They're sized, so you might have a financial application that is very heavy on the data side, and some data science stuff being done with tools such as Data Robot, or directly in Python, or through a great solution like AWS SageMaker, right? Would require large data warehouses for the purposes of running those workloads optimally. But then you might have some BI via tools like Tableau, Looker, Power BI, Sisense, ThoughtSpot, and so on and so forth that require a lot of computing power, but not as much as your financial app or your data science, and then you would size that as a medium. And again, you can resize those as you see fit, right? If medium is too large, then you can go down one or two back to a small or X small and so on and so forth. Then you'd have some semi-structured and structured data that you'd load from various data sources. And because the volume isn't so great, then you can load it optimally via an X small data warehouse. So again, all these different types of workloads, again, it's the same system, configured to run optimally so that you're only paying for what you use. So as far as pricing is concerned, all of it is kind of tied to how it is architected. First and foremost, and this is great, there's two kinds of ways that you can get started with Snowflake. There's an on-demand way, which is basically fixed pricing. Both the compute and the storage is fixed based on some variables. But this is basically, you can go to Snowflake, set up your free trial, and then once you're done with that, you would enter your credit card information, and you would basically pay for Snowflake on demand, right? No need to speak to a sales representative. You don't need to speak with anyone. You can be on Snowflake, leveraging Snowflake for a variety of things, just basically with your credit card with the fixed pricing. And that's very good if you're doing proof of concept, or if you're actually developing a solution where your intent is to go live, but you have to go through a variety of milestones. You might not want to pre-purchase your capacity for that kind of thing, right? So very easy to get started on that. And then pre-purchased capacity is more where you commit a dollar amount to Snowflake via an agreement. And that comes with a bunch of benefits when you're ready to do that. More service options, lower prices via discounts, and long-term price guaranteeing. And, of course, to get to the pre-purchase capacity agreement, you would initiate a conversation with the Snowflake sales representative and take it from there, right? And then in terms of what are the basics of what you pay for here, is the storage. The storage is basically a price per terabyte of data stored per month, right? And that will actually vary. The price per terabyte per month will vary based on the hosted region. And then of course it'll vary as well based on if you're using on-demand or capacity-based agreement, right? Discounts, no discounts, that sort of thing. So that's actually pretty straightforward. And then from a compute perspective, this is all the processing that goes, your ETL, your querying for BI, your data science, so on and so forth. So what they use is a unit of measure called a credit. A credit is actually tied to a dollar amount. So depending on if you're using on-demand or if you have a preset agreement with Snowflake, you'll have a certain price per credit, right? And also the price per credit will depend on which edition of Snowflake you're using. So if you're using Standard Edition versus Enterprise Edition versus Business Critical Edition, the actual price per credit will vary because the richness and the amount of features and the capabilities varies incrementally in terms of those three editions. And then the way that credits are consumed is they're used up for every hour of compute, right? So once you've tallied up an hour of using a particular virtual warehouse, which is that warehouse actually being up and running and being queried from a system standpoint. If it's not being used, you can actually make it go into a suspended mode. And then once it goes into suspended mode, you're actually not charged, right? So if you have a 24-hour day and you have an ETL warehouse that only runs for 2 hours a day, well, the remaining 22 hours in that day are basically dead time and not charged. So no credits being used from that particular perspective, right? If you have a business intelligence warehouse that's being used on average 8 hours a day, if you're a global company, that might be 24 hours a day if you have, different time zones and whatnot. But let's say that you're using it, in a simple 8 hour a day, then the remaining hours will not be charged, right? Because the virtual warehouse would be in suspended mode. And then finally, the amount of credits that are actually charged on a per hour usage depends on the size of your warehouse. So if you have a X small warehouse, that's 1 credit per hour, right? A small warehouse, maybe 2 credits per hour, medium, 3 credits per hour, and so on and so forth. Okay, and I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go too much into additional detail, but that's really the nuts and bolts of it. There's some great additional information at snowflake.com/pricing/pricing-guide, or if you go to snowly.io, there's an unofficial, really cool pricing calculator in there. That lets you kind of select your various workloads and how many terabytes of data you think you'll have and which edition you think you'll have of Snowflake. And it'll give you how much per month would be estimated in terms of what you would pay for that. And then here's an example of that. This is actually from Snowly. So on-demand pricing, so no preset agreement whatsoever, just using the on-demand, and we're hosted in AWS US East. I have two warehouses in this particular example. I have an ETL that's to load the data. It's an X small. It runs once a day and it takes 60 minutes, right? So I input those little values on that snowly.io website. And then I have my analytics. So I'll be reading, let's say Sisense data live from Snowflake to run my dashboards. So I selected a small warehouse that will be active Monday through Friday, running for on average 8 hours a day, right? And so what that would equate to, and of course I would have 2 terabytes of estimated storage on a monthly basis. And so that would add up to $882 per month, US dollars per month, of how much I would pay for actually running Snowflake using this particular configuration. And again, that's on demand, right? So that's just, if I'm getting started, and then if I wanted to go and leverage an agreement, then maybe some key discounts associated with that. So, okay, why change if your data warehouse is working, for example? So get into the value a little bit of kind of thinking about that. If it's not broken, why fix it, kind of thing. So there's a couple of really cool reasons to think about. This is not comprehensive by any stretch of the imagination, but just, just stuff to think about, like get away from having to manage all the infrastructure so that you could free your data team and data users to do more business critical and strategic things. You're spending your time not maintaining your data warehouse, but making the most of your data. You're leveraging an ecosystem that allows you to integrate so many different tools and solutions out there in the marketplace that really opens the door in terms of your solutioning for various business problems for now and in the future. Foster better collaboration, right? The ability to share data very easily, the ability to have consumers leverage the data without having to necessarily open ports in the firewall or create proxy servers so that they can access your Oracle database or set up highly secure VPN connections and things like that, right? And then reaping the benefits of concurrent data access. You have so many people requiring data at every time of the day, doing a number of different things with the data, from data engineering to business intelligence to high-level predictive applications and data science, and not have to worry about their concurrency. They can essentially have at it, if you will. So all of those things, I mean, these are cool things that warrant some thinking about. This is from a survey that Snowflake did, just highlighting some high-level numbers in terms of top line, bottom line, and risk mitigation benefits. If you look at the middle here, just one, for example, in terms of bottom line, 96% of customers have decreased administration effort through the use of Snowflake. And, we've definitely find that to be true through the way that they've architected the system and the way that you can leverage through configuration and not have to manage the infrastructure. So how do we get started? Very simple. You go to snowflake.com, take the 30-day trial. You don't even need to enter a credit card. You don't need to speak to a sales representative. You don't really need to do anything except for enter some information. And you'll get 30 days and $400 of credits, which is great to take the training or load some data and run some proof of concepts. And give you a really good idea of what the system is capable of, the features, and obviously from the point when you actually get into Snowflake, you can even leverage some of their partners and get trials from some of their ETL and business intelligence partners directly through the Snowflake user interface. You could start exploring, the data exchange and all those good things. Look at the documentation. There's all kinds of trainings and webinars available both from a technical, functional, and also from a business perspective. Customer testimonials are all available on the website, very easy to find. But yeah, very easy to get started through the 30-day free trial. It's definitely worth it to go in there and see what all the fuss is about. And with that being said, that's it. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that comprehensive overview. And of course, folks can reach out to us here at DataTerrain